This is Governor Brian Kemp.
And I'm First Lady Marty Kemp.
Summertime in Georgia should be all about getting outdoors and making memories with our families, not about tragedy.
That's why we are joining DECAL in reminding you to always look again and never leave a child alone in a vehicle, even for a minute.
As more Georgians are getting back on the road, it is critically important to remember that children are always our most precious cargo.
When you arrive at your destination, take the time to check the front and back of your car. And after you've looked, just be sure, look again.
And if you ever see a child left alone in a vehicle, call 911 immediately. Emergency personnel are trained to respond.
Help us spread the word on social media by sharing this video and follow DECAL for more information.
Let's make it a great summer, Georgia, and always look again.
Well, thank you very much to Governor Brian Kemp and First Lady Marty Kemp for kicking us off here on our virtual news conference for 2022. This is our Look Again virtual news conference, our 9th annual program, reminding you to never leave a child alone in a vehicle, even for a minute. We're going to be talking about why that's so important and how you can be a hero and prevent a tragedy simply by looking again. I'm Rich Griffin, Chief Communications Officer here at the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning, along with Commissioner Amy Jacobs, who will join us in just a moment. You'll be hearing from Commissioner Jacobs as well as Dr. Andrew Grunstein, Professor of Geography at the University of Georgia in Athens, where he specializes in weather, climate, and effects on human health. And also Sergeant First Class Michael Burns with the Georgia State Patrol. We're going to be talking to him about what do you do if you find a child left alone in a vehicle and you know that that's so dangerous, but what role can we play as the general public in once we spot something like that, knowing what to do? We're all together today for the proclamation of a very simple message, and that message is look again. Leaving children unattended in vehicles is the leading cause of non-traffic vehicular deaths across the nation. In fact, outside of car crashes, heat stroke is the #1 killer of children. The Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning is responsible for licensing and regulating the child care industry in Georgia, and we've made the health and safety of Georgia's youngest citizens a top priority. The last time a child died after being left in a hot car while in a Georgia child care program was 11 years ago. Her name was Jasmine Green. She was 2 years old. Since that day, we have greatly increased our focus on transportation safety and doing everything possible to prevent what happened to Jasmine from ever happening again to another child in Georgia. Just a few years ago, I had the opportunity to talk with Jasmine's dad, Charles Green, about the tragedy and the aftermath for him and his family. Let's take a look at that short interview.
They went on a field trip and a child was dropped off during the field trip. Their count said 12. 13 kids came back, 12 left, 13 came back, and unfortunately my daughter was the one that they missed. And they found my daughter inside the van, non-responsive, and I was seeing it on the news, on the TV, where it's like toddler left on daycare van, and they hadn't put up a picture yet, but they were started saying Jasmine Green, Jasmine Green. I'm like, whoa, 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 you know, so very staining, very tattooed type memory, something that hurts a lot, and I'll never, ever get rid of that memory out of my mind. You gotta continue to look on these buses. You gotta bring these people's kids home. Like, there's no tomorrow without a child. Please, just look again.
Wow, what a conversation with Charles Green and the impact that that had on his entire family. We were talking yesterday in the office that short of this horrible tragedy, Jasmine would be about 11 years old now. And so we dedicate every year this program in her memory and double our efforts to trying to make sure that this never happens again. So let's get started. We'll allow time for questions of our speakers at the end of the program today. But as we continue with today's program, you can please feel free to send us your questions using the chat box. We will cover all of those at the end. That's probably the best way to get your question into us. We're also using technology to ask you some questions. So please take your device and point it at the QR code that's on your screen. And you can use that with your phone. You can also go to slido.com on your mobile or desktop and enter the code 634397, 634397. We're going to test this out now with a very simple question. Where are you watching from? What city are you watching from? And we're going to see that we have folks in, I don't know if that's Houston, Texas or Houston County, Georgia, but we got one or the other. We have Athens. Anybody else out there? Give a little shout out to your hometown and find out who's watching from where. If you're using that, we have Athens, Georgia, well represented. We've got Augusta a couple of times. So we've got Augusta, Athens, either Houston, Texas or Houston. Let's see if any others pop in here real quick. This kind of gets us accustomed to the technology, and we'll ask more substantive questions here in a moment. Auburn, Opelika, gosh, we're seeing all kinds of areas around the state. Just good to know that you guys are out there. We are recording this news conference, and we're also going, we're sending it out via Facebook Live, and some folks joining us out there. So there's a good representation: Douglasville, Canton, Hinesville, Paulding County, lots of folks. Villa Rica is in the house, Statesboro is here. So thank you so much for joining us. We know this is a very busy time. It's the end of the school year. We're getting ready for the Memorial Day weekend. Lots of things going on, and we'll post the news conference to our Facebook page and also to our website so folks can watch it at a later time. But we appreciate those of you who could carve out some time and be with us live this morning. Well, we're going to go with our first speaker now, and you know her. If you're a part of our DECAL family, you know that with two young children of her own, this issue is very important to the Commissioner of the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning. She has made this a priority each and every year since joining the agency back in June of 2014. And so at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Commissioner Amy Jacobs.
Well, thank you, Reg, and good morning, everyone. We sure do appreciate you joining us today, and it's great to see the whole state represented. So thank you for being with us for this important virtual news conference. As Reg mentioned, this is our 9th year sponsoring the Look Again campaign here in Georgia, and we are occasionally asked, are you doing this again? Is this really still an issue? And while the numbers are improving, the data indicates that this is still a problem, and we need reminders, especially as we enter the hot summer months here in Georgia. Just like we all need reminders when we are carrying children in our cars and trying to not let distractions cause a tragedy that is preventable. Look Again is a message to families, childcare providers, and the general public that creates greater awareness and understanding on how to prevent pediatric vehicular heat stroke. Our partners at Save Kids Worldwide use the acronym ACT, which is Avoid Heat Stroke, Create Reminders, and Take Action. Thousands of children in Georgia are cared for daily. Hundreds of thousands of children in Georgia are cared for daily by over 4,300 licensed child care providers, most of whom transport children. Some statistics to consider: nationally, last year, 23 children died from pediatric vehicular heat stroke. Thankfully, none here in Georgia. However, recently, an 8-month-old girl in Snellville, Georgia, was left by her father in a hot car outside a police station. She died, and he has been charged with second-degree murder. And just last week in Memphis, Tennessee, a toddler was left in a vehicle outside a child care center and later died. And then a 10-month-old girl in Houston died after being left in a hot car for hours before her mom realized it. Since 1998, 907 children in the United States have died as a result of pediatric vehicular heat stroke, and Georgia ranks 32nd in the nation for incidents like this. We're all strong competitors, but that is a category where we would like to come in last. So how did DECAL get involved in this effort? Well, when DECAL receives reports of children left in vehicles by child care providers, we investigate each and every incident. During fiscal year 2021, 2 children were left in vehicles by child care providers statewide. And in fiscal year 2022, with about 1 month left in the year, 7 children have been left. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries from these incidents, but these numbers are moving in the wrong direction. Making up the 7 incidents this fiscal year were 4 in Fulton County and single instances in Clayton, Muskogee, and Newton counties. Now, please note, this is not a problem exclusive to child care providers. In fact, more often it happens while children are in the care of their own family or friends. And so today's warning goes out not only to child care centers, but to families, communities, neighborhoods, schools, places of worship, anywhere children gather, are cared for, and are being transported. That's why, again, this year we are reminding the general public to never leave a child alone in a vehicle, even for a minute. And when you've checked your vehicle to make sure everyone arrives safely and is out of the vehicle, look again and be sure to close and lock the doors, because cars, trucks, and vans are like playgrounds to our children. And another clarification, vehicular heat stroke is a year-round problem. It can happen even when temperatures are in the upper 50s, but it becomes particularly serious over the summer months when the average temperature in Georgia reaches 88 degrees and higher. In just 10 minutes, the temperature inside your car can rise 19 degrees. Think about how quickly that can happen. We believe that lives will be saved if these simple warnings are heard and heeded. Technology is a huge help in this effort and has definitely improved over the 9 years that we've been doing the Look Again campaign, from sensors in car seats and in vehicles to phone apps, which have reminders to check the back seat when you reach your destination. I want to thank others for helping us promote this message. The Georgia Department of Transportation is placing the Look Again message on their traffic signs on the interstates, and Georgia's own credit union is placing this message on their downtown Atlanta headquarters at 100 Peachtree Street the week of June 27th through July 1st. Thank you for your time and attention to this important issue. I look forward to any questions you might have later on. Back to you, Reg.
All right, thanks, Commissioner. And we have another question for our audience watching today. Remember, the question should come up on your device. What are some ways you can remind yourself that you are transporting a child? What are some ways that you can remind yourself that you are transporting a child? This might take a minute because you've got to type in your response. So we'll see and give you just a minute. We're going to be talking coming up in just a few minutes with Professor Grunstein from the University of Georgia, talking about the effects of heat in the summertime, but really year-round when it comes to pediatric vehicular heat stroke. And also Sergeant First Class Michael Burns is joining us. In fact, Sergeant Burns was telling us his family just bought a new car, and it does have a reminder when you stop the car of, are you carrying anybody? Do you have anybody with you? So double check. Let's see, we see placing important items in the same area as the child. Yes, great advice. Placing in, let's see, having a transportation checklist, that is very important. Someone said, put your shoe in the back seat. That I've heard that. It's a kind of an old school answer, but it definitely works. You know something is wrong because you don't have a shoe on. Oh yeah, I put it in the back with my child. So yeah, very, very good suggestion. Yeah, converse with them during the ride. You know, some of the best quality time with your child can be while you're transporting the child, whether that's to and from school or just around running errands or whatever. Just keep your mind engaged. That is a key part of the solution. Placing your purse or wallet in the back so you grab it when you exit. Yes, some people have said put your smartphone, there you go. Put your smartphone, your cell phone in the back seat, because most of us, that's the first thing we grab when we're getting out of the car. So all excellent suggestions, something in the back to remind you. Some have said put your child's toy in the passenger seat as just a mental reminder that I'm doing more than just driving around by myself today. And listen, we understand there are so many distractions that come from your personal life, from your work life, just circumstantial as we're traveling around in traffic around particularly our larger metropolitan areas, but even in the rural areas, so many things going on that can be distracting, but they should never be that distracting that we forget about the life of a child. So let's all work together to look again and use those reminders. Great examples. Well, for 9 years now, we have worked with Safe Kids Worldwide on the issue of pediatric vehicular heat stroke. And through Safe Kids, we met our next speaker, Dr. Andrew Grunstein, who turned out to be, little did we know, a nationally known expert in this field, right in our own backyard at the University of Georgia in Athens. Dr. Grunstein is a professor in the Department of Geography. He has a PhD in climatology from the University of Delaware and has become a leading expert in weather, climate, and human health. Dr. Grunstein has done extensive work in the area of pediatric vehicular heat stroke. And Dr. Grunstein, we are honored and privileged to welcome you back this year.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And I'm so happy that you are able to do this and raise awareness for these issues every year. Well, I think one of the things that probably helped for me to do is, given my expertise in climate, is to talk a little bit about how hot cars can get and why they get that hot. I know the commissioner had mentioned that cars can heat up 19 degrees in 10 minutes. And I know that they can heat up 40 to 50 degrees in an hour. And that might seem a little hard for people to understand. So I thought it'd be helpful for me to walk everyone through that a little bit. Jerry, I think we have a video that might be helpful to illustrate this. So this is an illustration. This actually comes from one of my colleagues, Jan Knoll. What it's showing is the sunlight can pass through the windows of the car, and the car acts like a greenhouse. So there's energy gets into the car and heats up the surfaces of the car, but the heat can't escape. So it builds up, and you can see in an hour, temperatures can reach 40 or 50 degrees hotter than what they are outside. And one of the things that, I think about, we've mentioned a few times, it gets hot here in Georgia in the summer. A typical day can be, 88 or 90 degrees or even more. And one of the things I want to highlight here is that, if a child's in a car and it's 90 degrees, that car could reach 130 or 140 degrees in an hour. And to place this in perspective, think about the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth was 134 degrees. This is in Death Valley. This can happen routinely in our cars in the summer. And this is extremely dangerous for children. It can lead to heat stroke. We know that every year children die in hot cars. On average, it's about 38 children. Some years have been even worse, where we've lost over 50. And that's why, again, I'm so happy that you're raising awareness here, and to keep those reminders of never leaving children in cars, to look again to make sure you don't forget a child in the car. Make sure you lock the car door so children can't get in there. And if you see someone leave a child unattended in the car, to call 911.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Grunstein. And we're going to ask you to stick around for any questions that we might have coming up in a moment. Remember, you can ask your question in the chat box, and Jerry's going to check that for us in just a moment and see if there are any questions that folks have, because there are always great questions that come up in these discussions, something that maybe we didn't think about. And we've got some standard messaging that we always use around this issue, but someone always comes up with something. So we appreciate any of the questions that you might have for our panel. Well, from the very beginning, about 9 years ago, with the Look Again campaign, we've always been supported by the Georgia State Patrol. They do a phenomenal job in protecting us and providing for the safety and the health and safety of all of us throughout the year, but especially when it comes to our roads and our safety in traveling around the state. And we're privileged to have with us today Sergeant First Class Michael Burns. He handles the Public Information Office for the Georgia State Patrol, and he is actually in his patrol car right now. So I guess, Sergeant Burns, my first question is it getting hot out there?
Yeah, I'm actually sitting in the shade with my air conditioner on, and it's already starting to get a little bit warm. So
yeah, we're expecting, I think, pretty high temperatures today and for the weekend. So this is kind of a not only a ceremonial time, it's very fitting time for us to talk about this idea of Look Again. I think one of the questions that we get a lot is, what should people do when they see a child left alone in a vehicle? We've been talking about this from the perspective of we're doing the driving. What can we do to remind ourselves? But let's take the scenario of we're walking through a parking lot and we see a child left alone in a vehicle, windows rolled up. It's obvious that they're not doing well. What can we legally do?
well, first and foremost, obviously you need to call 911 and explain the situation. Tell them, stay on the line, tell them as much information as you can, especially if the child looks like that they're, starting to show signs of distress, in and out of consciousness, something like that. That information needs to be relayed to 911. Stay with the vehicle until 911 gets there. Don't just call and report it and then leave. Obviously stay there. And then if it gets to a point where you can tell that the child is in extreme distress and unable to, maybe some shallow breathing or something that shows that it's getting really, really bad, then find something to break the window and try to get the kid out of there. A lot of people worry about, what happens if I break somebody else's window? There are Good Samaritan laws in the state of Georgia that covers you from civil liabilities in the event of an emergency, in the event of you trying to render emergency care to someone. The actual code section is 51-1-29 in the official code of Georgia. And it says in there that if you're rendering aid in an emergency situation, basically you do whatever you need to do to save that particular person or that child. So again, if you have to do that, don't just break the window and leave. If it comes to that, break the window, get the child out, and again, wait on 911. But wait on first responders. The very first thing that needs to be done is 911 needs to be called.
And I'm assuming if we're going to break a window, we're wanting to break the window farthest away from the child to limit any flying glass toward the child. Would that be correct?
Yeah. So say they're, for example, they're in the passenger side rear, then I would try to go for like the driver's side front, something that's furthest away from them, because you don't want to make things worse and go break the window right next to them and throw glass all over them. I would break the furthest one away, then just reach in, unlock the door, and go around to that side and get the child out.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming the advice here is like it is in any emergency, try to stay calm.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the toughest parts, is you really got to try to stay calm, because if you can't stay calm and can't contain your emotions, then it's just going to make the situation much worse. So try to stay calm and keep the child's best interest in mind, and basically do whatever you have to do to save the kid.
Right. Hopefully, folks watching today are as fortunate as I am. My wife tends to be the more reasonable, level-headed person. I'm a little more emotional, so maybe she needs to be doing that part, and I need to go get help. But that's great advice. I know you've got an extensive background in law enforcement. Have you ever worked calls like this before? And any advice from that experience for people today?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have experienced this. I worked for a police department prior to joining the State Patrol from 2005 to 2007. And again, unfortunately, it was a very regular occurrence. There would be large shopping center parking lots where people would call us and there would be kids in the car. There were some times we got there and it wasn't a situation where it was getting too hot because the child was left alone, the car wasn't running. It was sometimes a situation where the parent left the car running in the parking lot and then went inside, which good for the parent for leaving the car running. However, you can't just leave a small child in the car by themselves while you go into the store. So we dealt with that a good bit, but had quite a few situations where it would be the middle of July and it's already 100 degrees outside and they're sitting in a parking lot with black pavement and it's just unbearable in the car. Sometimes we were able to kind of sit by until the parents got there. And there were times that we came in and with the fire department had to break a window to get the child out. And then the parent came out. Sometimes there were occasions where they had forgotten, but there were also occasions where they really didn't understand what the problem was. They didn't forget. They just needed to run into the store a little bit and thought the child would be okay. And then they had a grocery list and didn't realize how long they were in there. So it is something that fortunately I have not had to deal with it a lot since I came to the patrol, but it was something that I was very familiar with at the police department.
Right. So many distractions inside the store. We've heard of situations where someone goes in, they see someone they haven't seen for a while, totally forget, or maybe there's a problem with a debit card or they can't find that item. So many reasons not to do that. And how often do we hear about carjackings in situations like this with the child in the car?
Yeah. So our office is in Atlanta, and unfortunately it's happened in Atlanta quite a few times recently where you see on the news that somebody runs into a gas station and then their car gets stolen with their child in the car. And in fact, it happened pretty recently, and our department recovered the vehicle and it was actually able to take the driver into custody and recover the child. And if I remember correctly, I believe it was a 4-year-old that was left in the car and someone jumped in the car to steal it. Because in Atlanta, with the number of car thefts, if there's a car that's left running in front of a gas station or in front of a store or whatever, it's obviously an easy target. And those that are going to steal cars, they're not looking to see if there's anybody in there. They're just jumping into a running vehicle and leaving. And there was a 4-year-old in it, but fortunately our agency was able to stop the car and recover the child and take the driver into custody and nobody was hurt. But that's one of the very good stories out of a bad situation.
Right. Wow. That's something good for you guys to handle that the way that you did. Well, we're heading into the Memorial Day weekend. Any advice while we have you on keeping everybody safe for this weekend?
Yes, it's our typical Memorial Day response. Wear your seatbelt, slow down, put the phone down, because there are many that forget now in the state of Georgia, if you're just holding your phone, even if you're not using it, if you're holding it, you can receive a ticket for it. Even if you have it laying on your leg while you're driving, if it's touching any part of your body, you can get a ticket for it. So put the phone down, make sure you have a designated driver because there's going to be a lot of people on the road and we don't need people driving after they are under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And again, wear your seatbelt. See, I'm sitting here in a parking lot in the shade, burning up with my air conditioner on, but I still have my seatbelt on because it's a habit, and I wear it everywhere I go. So again, slow down, don't drink and drive, don't mess with the phone, and wear a seatbelt.
Right. Good advice. It's interesting. We've got that law about cell phone use while you're in your car in Georgia, and yet if you look at most intersections, maybe at a stoplight, about half the drivers are checking their phone. So I think that's an important reminder that there is a law. And how embarrassed would you be knowing that there is a law and that it is wrong to do it? It can wait. That's the main thing. We're going to have to do another campaign called It Can Wait, because so many times it can't. Well, Sergeant, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to ask you to stick around as well for any questions that we might have. We want to take just a moment and share with you our public service announcement. Every year, we produce a public service announcement to remind folks to always look again. We'll be running this in a variety of ways over the summer, but if you are a television station, community TV, a public access channel, even an online portion of a print publication, and you would like to run this, you have our full okay to do that. We would like to run this as often and in as many places as we can. Those of you with social media accounts, if you can share this on your social media, we'll be posting it to our Facebook, our Instagram, and Twitter. We'd appreciate you sharing this wherever you can. This is produced by Jerry Brown, who is part of our communications team, Emmy Award-winning videographer. And so let's take a look at this year's 2022 Look Again reminder.
911, what's your emergency?
We need help. There's a little boy left in a car with the windows up and the doors locked. It's extremely hot and he's not responding to us. I don't know how long he's been in there.
Sir, what's your location?
Just this week, quick-thinking shoppers helped save a baby left in a hot car.
Tragedies like this happen all too often, and these situations are 100% preventable if we take the time and look again.
As more Georgians are getting back on the road, it is critically important to remember that children are always our most precious cargo.
When you arrive at your destination, take the time to check the front and back of your car. And after you've looked, just be sure, look again.
This applies to anyone transporting children, whether it's families, child care providers, or whomever.
And if you ever see a child left alone in a vehicle, call 911 immediately.
Also, lock your vehicle doors, even when you're at home. Look Again is a simple yet life-saving reminder so that these 100% preventable tragedies don't happen again. So please take the time and look again.
And once again, thanks to Jerry Brown, our communications team here at DECAL, for the reminder to always look again. And as you can see there, never leave a child alone in a vehicle, even for a minute. We know, we've got a podcast that's out right now on our DECAL Download podcast, and some of our child care services folks, we're talking about this, and a pediatric nurse from CHOA, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and we were talking about the fact that we hear from so many parents, wow, it's a hassle, particularly with a very young child, to just deal with that car seat. And we understand that, but it is so much better to know that you're preventing something like that from happening by taking on just a little more responsibility and being reminded that that this is so important. Let's check. Now we've heard from our speakers. Let's take your questions. You can use the chat feature on the Zoom call. We're also monitoring our Facebook account. So hopefully if we can find some answers that you might have or questions you might have from Facebook, we'll try to take those as well. Jerry, anything in the chat box that you can see?
No, nothing in the chat box as of yet. I'm checking Facebook currently.
Okay. We'll give it just a minute to see if we want to catch any questions from those of you that are viewing today. And again, you can help us by sharing this on your social media pages and reaching out, letting folks know if you have family and friends, really anyone that is transporting a child. It might be a child care program that you're involved in or that you attend, maybe a church, synagogue, religious affiliation. Please share this message with whoever you know that might be transporting children. Grandma, grandpa, anybody would be good. Very quickly, we don't want to take too much of your time today, but if you can type a question into the chat box or on Facebook, we'll catch it and share it with our panel. I will ask one question while we're waiting for Dr. Grunstein, if you could elaborate a little bit on the body temperature of a child. One of the things that we focused on is that while an adult may be uncomfortable in a hot car, it is almost not only dangerous, but could be deadly for a child because the body temperature. Can you explain that a little bit?
Oh, sure. The dangers with being in a hot car is that your body temperature rises where you could get heat stroke, which is life-threatening. And there's a few reasons why children are really vulnerable. One, if it gets hot in a car, an adult could remove clothing and other things. Children are often, they're mostly younger children that are strapped in and can't remove clothing. And the other thing is because they're smaller, their bodies can heat up more quickly than an adult. so they can reach heat stroke more quickly than an older person would in the car. So children are especially vulnerable in these situations.
And somewhere I heard that the child's temperature, once it reaches 104 degrees, we're talking about organs shutting down. That this can really be a serious situation.
Exactly. That, think about, when you have a fever and it's 102, you feel pretty awful. 104, when your body temperature reaches that, that's when you're right. Organs can shut down. And if you don't get immediate medical attention, it could be, life-threatening. And we know, 38 children a year on average, and over 900 children, I think since 1998, have died in hot cars.
Right. Incredible. And again, to remind you what the commissioner talked about in the opening, 3 deaths in the month of May alone. Again, this was while the child was in the care of their own family that this happened. The 8-month-old in Atlanta, Snellville specifically, 8-month-old girl, 2-year-old boy in Memphis at a child care. That's where the location was. The parent worked in the child care in Memphis, Tennessee. And then most recently, on May the 20th, a 10-month-old girl in Houston, Texas. So why do you continue to harp on this message? Well, there are 3 good reasons right there. And one of them was here in Georgia. So let's all work together to remind everyone to look again. Let's see, one last question for the audience. How can you help us get the word out about Look Again? What are some ways that you can help us get the word out about Look Again? And let's see what we've got. Share on Facebook, great example. Use our app to remind our families. Yes, talk to parents with kids in your care about Looking Again. Sharing with friends, very important. I can't tell you the reach of social media. It's amazing. Post flyers in your center, absolutely. Share through social media, email and text, yes. So much better sharing this message on the front end than on the back end of a situation like this. You think about tragedies, and we're often talking about reacting to a tragedy. Here's a situation where you can be proactive in a tragedy ahead of time, prevent the tragedy, and feel so good about doing it. Spreading info to friends and families at our programs about Look Again. Yes, using that daily sheet, sharing, via the daily sheet, the daily information, keeping it in front of folks. I know our child care services folks go into child care programs on a regular basis, at least twice a year for inspections. And they always take the opportunity to remind people to always look again. There's a checklist for children on the van, whether they're coming in for regular transportation or on a field trip. And it's supposed to be that roll is checked every single time. And then someone not affiliated with the trip can come behind that person and check the vehicle again. They walk the vehicle, as they say, looking underneath seats and behind, because children are so small. Host an event for families about car safety and highlight the importance of Look Again. Perfect. Partner with your local law enforcement. Let them help you carry this message. Put up posters, absolutely. Parent letters and reminders, yes. Again, in slides on your TV in the front lobby, perfect. We can give you graphics. If you need graphics, if you need printed posters, we've got those. If you just want to send an email to either me, Reg Griffin, it's reg.griffin@decal.ga.gov, or jerry.brown@decal.ga.gov. We are more than happy to send those out to you via email or regular mail. Anything we can do to help you get the word out, we're more than happy to do that. Great suggestions. I love these. So thank you for passing those along, and we hope you'll follow up on that. Again, you can help us spread the word about Look Again by sharing this video and our PSA with as many people as possible. We're going to be posting it later today on our website. We've got a slider on the homepage that will direct you to our Look Again page. You can go back and look at past campaigns, more interviews with families that we've met through the years, all posted there for you at decal.ga.gov, also on our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube pages. We're big fans. As Dr. Grunstein mentioned, we're big fans of Jan Null and his website, noheatstroke.org. That's where we pull a lot of our current information about victims of pediatric vehicular heat stroke around the country. Jerry sends emails out that you can sign up for, so you'll know exactly what happened. Usually has links to the local media coverage around that. noheatstroke.org for the latest information. We just appreciate the attention that all of you will give and all of you will bring to the critical issue of safely transporting our children here in Georgia. Again, thanks to our panel, Commissioner Jacobs, as always, Dr. Grunstein, great resource right there at the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. I know they're still on that national championship high, and they're locking in Kirby's contract today, I understand. So that's good. And we also want to thank Sergeant First Class Michael Burns with the Georgia State Patrol, as always, great partners in everything they do. So thanks for joining us today. Again, if you know of anyone who missed this, we'll be posting it to our Facebook and also on our website. Have a great day, happy and safe Memorial Day weekend, and don't forget to look again.